Hi everyone, thanks for being here today. So as Laura said, I'm Kate. I'm from the Careers and Employability team, and I lead on the PAL Central offer for the university. This is just a part of my role, but I'll talk to you today about what we've worked on so far for the PAL pilot that we implemented in 2021. Bear with me, my slide won't go for some reason. Here we go. So what is PAL? I'm sure a lot of you have heard of PAL before, or have even got a bit of an understanding of what it is. But in short, peer-assisted learning, sometimes referred to as PAL, is a scheme that fosters higher year students supporting lower year students on the same course. And by having a scheme like this, we're almost challenging the boundaries between staff and students, identities and roles, and it kind of challenges the traditional hierarchical relationships that we see. And this is so that it can benefit students and staff in terms of time management. So why did we initiate the PAL pilot? Dr. Paul Redmond was really keen to see PAL implemented across the university, and with the support of Professor Gita Sedgi from chemistry, who's an expert in the field of PAL and has many years' experience with her long-standing PAL scheme, which I'm sure some of you might have heard of or seen in action, we were able to devise a training programme that we would deliver. As I said, that was implemented in 2021. But we are still in that pilot, so the next academic year will also be part of the pilot as well. We also, I received training from the European Centre for Sci-PAS, who are actually based in Sweden. I didn't get to go over there because of the pandemic, unfortunately, but the training took place online and it was really extensive and enabled me to train PAL leaders and academics on how to run a successful PAL scheme. So what other benefits does peer-assisted learning have? It's got a range of social and academic benefits, which I'm going to discuss throughout this presentation. And as I said earlier, those benefits don't only help the students, so the participants of the PAL sessions and the peer leaders, but also the academic staff involved as well. It also allows students to feel a sense of belonging in alignment with their academic studies. And this is something that I'm really keen to see happen within careers and employability. We operate on a peer-to-peer philosophy, and I know other departments across the university are really keen to see more of this. So this PAL scheme, I suppose the driving force is to create that kind of densely knit social network for students, so that they feel that they've got a wider support mechanism when it comes not only to their academic studies, but to their well-being as well. So what other things are we keen to see with PAL and with the progression of PAL? As I said, we're in the pilot, so in terms of the data we've got now, it's extremely low, but we'd like to see that grow within the next year in terms of the feedback we receive. But we'd like to see that it enhances student learning through students having that safe space to ask questions within a PAL session, to see that it helps students with their well-being, as I've mentioned, to help with retention as well. So if a student is struggling, you know, they might go to a PAL session taking place on campus or online, and they might be able to ask that silly question that they just didn't feel comfortable asking in a lecture. It could completely change their route. So much as they might get a new way of studying to try and get them out of that rut that they might be in. It's important to note that the PAL leaders aren't teachers. They're simply there to provide information that's been designated by the academic leader, and they'll provide that information in a PAL session to students. That might take the form of some questions, a quiz, you know, it could be quite light touch, or a specific project brief that they can work on together that will further support a dissertation or coursework. not only are we seeing all of the skills that I've mentioned, but we're also seeing some transferable professional and employability skills within this piece as well. Now, this is something that, as I said, Gita had a major role in the implementation of this pilot, and she said that was something that we would definitely see, particularly in terms of the leadership skills that students would gain. So I thought it would be fitting to ask one of the academics who was involved in our PAL pilot about how she found the experience. And it just turns out that Gina Washburn, who's from Ocean and Ecological Sciences, was a PAL leader during her studies. So obviously had an interest in the area. But Gina comments on how it, as a student, it increased her confidence and communication. And as an academic leader, she's been able to use her experience to guide students and create leaders. But it's also enabled her to get to know the students more. And it's made it easier in terms of some of the operational things, which is one of the major things we want to see. So that might be writing references, dealing with large numbers of emails. We'd like to see that some of those queries are filtered through the PAL leaders and obviously referred where appropriate. So thank you, Gina, for your quote. So just a bit of an overview of the PAL pilot, which we implemented in 21-22 academic year. So I did say at the start, this is a part of my role. So the other part of my role is an employability officer within careers and employability. And I am leading on the programme of the project, the pilot, myself. So in terms of how the programme is operated, what we tend to do is provide the training and we'll help you with that implementation. So a full training programme, but we would hope that once the academic year begins in terms of logistics, you're fully ready to kind of operate that scheme within your faculty, department, school. And of course, we'd be there to meet with you, you know, on a one-to-one level where necessary. We also have a community of practice as well. So you can see how the programme's grown. So this year I'll be providing training to students from all of these disciplines. And I think this really echoes how useful academics and students have found the pilot. So we will be training chemistry as well. But in terms of the programmes that have fully been involved in the pilot in terms of, you know, not really having been involved in PAL training before. We've got physics, environmental sciences, EEE, aerospace engineering, maths. And then you can see that in health and life sciences, medicine and dentistry are now involved in our training, which is great. And hopefully law and economics are taking part again next year once their academic leaders are appointed too. So let's move on to the transferable skills that students will gain. So we've surveyed the students, and as I said, in terms of how we've evaluated the programme this year, the reports have been fairly light touch, fairly short, which you would expect within a pilot. As I said, we'd like to see that information that we gather growing within the next academic year. But students have said that it's helped them to work online, it's helped them with professional development, leadership skills, which we wanted to see, confidence and public speaking. Some of the other things those students have mentioned, an increase in confidence, also an increase in their ability to speak to employers, and that might be in relation to work experience, roles related to their areas of study, placements, year in industry, really good stuff that we'd like to see. Also with how they operate virtually, we know that, you know, we're living in this hybrid world now, so it's important that students gain that insight and those skills. So are you keen to embed PAL within your module for a future academic year? I'll go through some of the things that you might want to do and how we can support you now. But before I do, I've got a photo on the screen here. And actually, it's probably not the best example of how many people were in this session. I think I've cropped it where all the students were, but this was on a Monday morning at the end of the academic year. So this was this year, Monday morning, and they had a law PAL session. I went to observe the session to see how the leaders were handling it and communicating with the students. And it was great to see how many students were there. I think there were about 17 students in the session. And again, Monday morning, 9 o'clock, it shows how useful they are finding these sessions. And they did come up to me to say, they're really keen to see PAL extended across other modules. It was great to see the PAL leaders speaking in the language of the discipline, but not teaching the students, simply guiding them and supporting them with their learning. So what can we offer then? So general advice on how to establish PAL. So this could be through a one-to-one meeting, sharing some of our resources, and also if you wanted to attend our next community of practice. I mentioned this earlier, this is to scaffold learning across the university. As I said, on a logistical level, with it just being myself who's leading on this, we really need to scaffold that learning so that academics can learn from each other as well as from me. And the training that we offer will focus on goal setting, reflection, communication, teamwork, how to provide positive feedback. I think that's a really important one, and matching careers to talents. We also can offer support with resources for any Canvas pages. So if you want to implement PAL on a specific module, we'll provide the resources and you can put those on that module. We offer it here. So again, this would need to be managed in faculty or in your department. However, once it's all set up, so the students just need to take part in 7 hours worth of activity. We can share those details with you. And then once you have your list of students at the end of the academic year, you send over their information and we'll ensure that they get that award. We can, of course, help with recruitment documentation as well to really ensure that you get the right students on board and that students are engaged in potentially supporting with PAL as well. So if you do want to implement PAL, what are our recommendations? And these are recommendations that are advised by the European Centre for SciPass. In terms of retention, we definitely see that leaders might dip in and out sometimes. Overall engagement was good, but how do we keep them engaged throughout the academic year, particularly in light of hybrid model? We think that in terms of how we communicate with them using different platforms is really important. We've also thought about how we could use LinkedIn Learning Pathways as well to communicate with participants of the sessions. So that might be something PAL leaders go on to do. The hybrid model. This actually works really well in relation to the programme itself. Students are keen to have a little bit of both where necessary, but they're also keen to use different spaces on campus to meet with their students. I've included a photo of the Spine here. They've got a coffee shop. Some students said they were really keen to use that space. Also incentivising the programme, particularly important. How can we do that to ensure that students attend sessions? And again, this supports with retention for both the leaders and the participants and helps to raise the profile of the programme as well. I know Gina offers students hot chocolates, coffees, and they really appreciate that. So I just thought I would end with 2 really positive quotes. I'm not going to read them quote unquote, but I will just pick out a few points. The student here has said, this is to echo some of the things I've mentioned throughout the presentation. It's really helped them with those online skills, so using Zoom. And also it's given them experience of liaising with professional colleagues, so really developing those professional skills. And academically, it's helped them to explain concepts to students, and through explaining those concepts, they've gained further knowledge into their subject area and or discipline. Here, a student said the feedback they've had from participants, this is a PAL leader, has been really positive, and also students have commented on how they feel that PAL has provided them with a safe space to share, responses that might not always be correct. and also that they really want to see PAL extended across the university, and that hopefully it will be in the future. So that is it from me. I realise this is a lightning talk and is of course very brief, but I hope to have given you an overview of our pilot so far and our plans for the next academic year. Any questions?
Thank you, Kate. That was wonderful.
Oh, thanks, Laura.
Any quick questions for Kate? I know you've got to shoot off, Kate, so are people okay to contact you outside of this as well if we don't get to questions?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
I can see Helen's got a hand up. Helen?
Oh, thanks, Laura. Thanks for that, Kate. It's dead interesting. I think the PAL scheme sounds, well, it's great, isn't it? And it's great for both sets of students. I was wondering about the PAL leaders, and you mentioned things about the year in industry. So I may have missed this. Is it second year students who do it, or is it final year students who do it?
Yeah, so I mean, it can be a bit of a mixture depending on the programme, the course. So really, there's a bit of flexibility there, to be honest. Within the first year of the pilot, we were really keen for it to be those kind of higher end students, so final year students. But now I feel that we could operate it with second year students if you wanted to as well. We could certainly do that.
Right, I'm more thinking around, so our second years are applying for year in industry in their first semester, and so they're super busy, they're juggling their modules and they're applying for jobs. And then when they cut, so then the third years have then got their 70% of their degree classification. I'm trying to work out who it's best to picture at if we did something like this.
Yeah, like how it would work logistically. Yeah,
and have you found any comments from students about that, or not particularly?
Actually, no, we have, and it's more around how we recruit those students and the skills that we highlight in order to keep those students engaged. So obviously we recognise that the students have got other commitments, and I suppose it's about how we kind of communicate that to students in the recruitment offer, so that we understand that they're busy, but there's flexibility in doing this programme. They are going to gain X, Y, and Z skills that will help to support them with actually what they're doing at the moment. But, you know, most importantly, their studies are the most important.
Yeah.
But I actually think that now that we can operate on a hybrid model, there's a bit of flexibility there as well. But perhaps something we can pick up, Helen, in terms of in the future, if you're keen to set up a scheme, and we can consider how that might work on a logistical level.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Kate.
Oh, no probs.
I think Barry had his hand up, and I know we've got Elspeth as well. Barry, do you want to go ahead?
Okay. I'm relatively new, less than a year at the University of Liverpool, and in dentistry it is very normal to have peer-assisted learning because we pair our students. So we talk about peer-to-peer, near-peer and distant peer because it's a 5-year programme. So we do at the University of Liverpool have 5th-year students doing dental nursing for 3rd-year students, but part of the role is not just the nursing, it is actually, I would say, peer-assisted teaching as well as peer-assisted learning. Now, do we need to register these things with you, or is it perfectly fine that we have got mixed peer groups helping each other?
Perfectly fine. The whole idea of this pilot is to just see PAL implemented further across the university. So I'm working with Tony Watson, Barry, from your team, and she's got a group of students that she'd really like to see go through some of our training. But we're in understanding that the scheme runs differently. Every scheme will run differently to the kind of main model that we might operate to initially. But in terms of the training, we still feel that we can really support those students in kind of gaining the correct skills. But I do bear that in mind with the training.
Okay, thank you.
No problems.